News, politics, and special guests with a Texas twist. That's the goal of the Luke Macias Show. Our nation and state are at a crossroads, and if you're not informed, you're not equipped to make the change that our community needs. Join the conversation and join the cause for liberty today. Welcome to episode 15 of the Luke Macias Show. I am here with my co-host, Raz Schaefer. How are you doing today?
I am blessed, my friend. How about yourself?
I cannot complain. To give everyone a quick update, I'm sure more might have happened by the time we come back next week. You'll be hearing this on Monday. The Texas legislature will probably either when you're listening to this episode or within a day or two after that, the Texas House will be debating a sales tax increase. There's a lot of mixed messaging out there about what this is and is not. And truthfully, it's hard to tell you what it is because I don't know that the legislators know what it is. So what I can tell you is this. They have said that part of the reason to do this is to deliver meaningful property tax relief because they want to raise the sales tax and take that revenue and buy down property taxes. They've also said that they need additional revenue for public school funding in an ongoing way and in a dedicated way. The Texas Senate this week passed out House Bill 3, and in House Bill 3 is the school funding bill. And in that bill, the Senate put language in there that said that the tax relief portions, many of the tax relief portions of that piece of legislation do not go into effect unless we find more revenue. Now, it's important to let everyone know that the tax relief part of House Bill 3, it's about $2.7 billion of what we call a tax compression, which is when the state writes a check to school districts and that in turn lowers your property tax bill. Or sometimes it just doesn't make it go up, to be honest. It might not necessarily lower it, but we give that money to them and in turn try to relieve some of the pressure on people's property taxes. $2.7 billion is in House Bill 3. That money has never been contingent on a tax increase, meaning that $2.7 billion was supposed to be returned to the taxpayers in our existing budget, which is a very small amount of tax relief in comparison to the entire budget. Now they're saying, well, taxpayers won't get that relief unless a sales tax increase goes into effect. You would have to assume that, and in fact, Larry Taylor said, in essence, a sales tax will be used to fund that, which means that a sales tax would be funding tax relief that we already had funded with the dollars that we already had taken from you. The legislature will debate this measure. The question is whether or not Dan Huberty and other Republicans will publicly commit to keeping this a one-to-one swap, because anything other than that is a real true tax increase on Texans. And so that is being discussed. The Senate is discussing. They moved House Bill 3 out. I want to tell you all this. It's pretty funny. At 10 a.m. in the morning, I think it was Wednesday, the Texas Senate brought a 300-page bill to the Public Education Committee, gave it to the senators and said, we're voting this out in 45 minutes. This is how kind of last minute they're treating a lot of this stuff. And it's truly because it's just a work in motion and there's so many different people trying to figure out what they want to get out of this. And it's causing the process to be hard to follow for many people and potentially dangerous for taxpayers. So we got to keep an eye on that. I will definitely maybe even come to you midweek during the, I'm recording this before, but in the coming week, when you listen to this on Monday, if anything really important happens, we'll try to maybe even do a midweek podcast or at least put something up on Facebook so that y'all know what's going on. This legislation's all going to be coming to a head in the next 2 weeks as the legislature wraps up its policy. And the real question is whether any of the money that government is already taking from you will be returned to you, or whether the only tax relief you'll get is money that the government gets through increasing taxes and taking more of your money. So that's all being discussed. Let's get, though, to our episode today. So I'm really excited about the conversation we had. I'm even more excited about the organization's existence that we got to interview. So I interviewed Konni Burton and Drew White. Drew is the senior editor, and Konni is the founder and CEO of The Texan. And The Texan is a new journalism news website that has been launched, and they are reporting on all things Texas. They're reporting on local politics, state politics, policy issues, national issues, but when it comes to, the federal side, congressmen, senators, what our Texas representatives are doing and what's going on in DC and how is it affecting Texans. It's a really cool model. So they're not being run as a nonprofit. So they're not raising a lot of donor dollars. That's the way a lot of journalism works today. And then you have a lot of media going out of business that are ad driven, that are basically driven by ads. And I think that's what a lot of us experience as well, either with these, newspapers that have a lot of clickbait headlines just to get you to click and show up so that you might make them ad revenue, or so much of traditional media, which is behind paywalls constantly. They're going to be a subscriber-based website. And here's the greatest thing. It's interesting. I think the Dallas Morning News just in the last couple of weeks announced a new set of potential layoffs and problems with their funders. They've had numerous rounds of layoffs. The Austin American-Statesman has had numerous rounds of layoffs, including as well as the Express News and Houston Chronicle. Traditional media is going away. And I think they're going away because they are completely separated from the worldview of who Texans are and what Texans believe. We have something that is increasingly frustrating for any conservative-minded Texan, which is the fact that all of our traditional media outlets in this state are all left of center. They are all pushing an agenda that is trying to push Texas further to the left. And we don't have any type of pure journalistic organization that is actually dedicated to delivering the news, but from a right-of-center perspective. And that is what the Texan is going to deliver. So today's conversation is with Konni Burton and Drew, and they get a chance to talk about why they founded the Texan, what they're trying to do, how it's working. Guys, I'm just going to let y'all know the day this got launched, which was last week, my wife and I signed up. We are now subscribers, paid subscribers. I believe that the market has a demand for this product. I think that Texans out there will join me and others in paying for real news, in paying for real journalism that actually reflects the values of Texans. And Raz, I mean, you got a chance to listen to the conversation that I had there before the listeners. What were some of your takeaways?
Well, first of all, I've known Konni for 10 years and Drew for about 6, and they're two of my favorite people. They're God-fearing Texans that absolutely work their butts off in the movement and have been doing a good job of separating wheat from chaff when it comes to news and sources for a very long time. They've both been the victims of less than honest media interactions in the past, and they understand the power that the truth has for our side, for the right of center perspective. And so I'm really excited. I'm also a subscriber, and I'm really pumped to see what they do here, because they have a whole stable of very talented, thoughtful, and articulate journalists on their team that are going to be providing a lot of great content for just a few dollars a month for subscribers.
I mean, and honestly, so just so people know, I mean, I think joining costs, you can either pay it all up front for a year, which is like $7.50 a month, or you can pay $9 a month to be a subscriber. And I mean, honestly, if somebody is listening to this podcast and wants there to be a stronger, more robust right of center journalist organization in Texas, then you need to go to TheTexan.News and sign up. At a minimum, you can just give them your email, and then you can read 5 free articles a month. And so at a minimum, just give them your email, sign up, become a part of it that way. But honestly, I want to encourage people listening here and encourage you as you interact with other right of center Texans that there's an opportunity we have to actually support and pay for strong journalism. People want news. It's just something I get all the time. I mean, I can't tell you how many people in Raz, I'm sure you get this, a lot of your right of center family members and friends who aren't super care about where we're going, but they're not surrounded by politics. They don't live in politics. And I get them all the time telling me, hey, where do I go for really good news? Where do I go for news that I can trust? And it just shows that they don't believe it's out there. And even news, to be honest, like I follow a ton of right-wing I follow a ton of very conservative journalist organizations, right? I follow a ton of the Ben Shapiro's of the world on the national level and other groups like that. And but many of these organizations, they really are catering to one group of people, right? I mean, they're writing for those most conservative people, and which serves a purpose. But there's really not something writing to this middle group of people. And so I think many of those people in the center in Texas end up gravitating to the very far left media. And I feel like having a media organization that can be seen as actually truly, right of center in a reflective way, real strong journalism, is a huge asset to any red-blooded Texan in our state. But hey, without further ado, let's get to the conversation with Konni and Drew. Welcome to episode 15 of the Luke Macias Show. I am honored to be in the worldwide headquarters of the brand new right of center journalistic organization based in Texas called The Texan, for a conversation with Drew White, who is the senior editor here at The Texan, and the famous and popular and beautiful Senator Konni Burton. Konni, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you. And it's an appropriate introduction. Thank you very much, Luke.
Absolutely. So, Konni, why don't you start us off? For those listeners who aren't familiar, what is The Texan? This is, 36 hours old or whatever? But tell us what The Texan is and why you're doing it and what you're doing.
So the TheTexan.News is an online media publication. We are responding to what we believe is a bias in media. I know many of your listeners are going to be shocked hearing me say that, but we do believe that there is a left of center bias in the media. And we are fully aware that Texas is still a red state. Roughly half the population is right of center. And yet every media organization within Texas focuses more their information, what kind of content they produce, how they produce it, to that half of the population. And so all of us who are right of center are yearning for quality content that, but is from a right of center worldview. And I've said this so many times to people, there is a difference in worldviews, right? Yep. And the type of stories that may be of interest to left of center versus right of center people. So my husband and I came together to start this operation because we see the void. We've seen the void for many years. We've hoped that somebody else would step in and do this. Nobody else has. And so we decided, what the heck, we're going to do this. And so we've started it, and couldn't be more proud of what we've already accomplished with this team that we've put together.
So Drew, tell me about how you got brought into this and what your perspective is. I mean, this is something you're taking on with Konni. So
just like to know,
a little background.
You did not give me the shining, glorious introduction that you
handsome.
gave.
You needed to use the word handsome.
I'm saying you got a face for radio.
Well,
I mean, that's what they say,
Good.
and that's what some people say.
I hope my mother is not listening.
I love that.
So, in answer to your question, it is an interesting sort of transition for me, right? So my background is very much in public policy. It's very much in conservative movement public policy. I spent 3 years cutting my teeth at Heritage Action, which is the political arm of the Heritage Foundation. A lot of time and effort went in largely stopping bad things from a conservative perspective from occurring in D.C., which for your listeners, I'm sure they think most things that happen in D.C. are bad. They would
Because
be correct.
they are.
I think
would
we
be
could all
correct.
agree.
And then after that, I served a couple of years with, had the privilege to serve a couple of years with Senator Ted Cruz as his domestic policy advisor, and that was a lot of fun. Was there at an interesting time, right when he was announcing to go run for president, and was sort of overseeing the domestic policy apparatus in his official side, in his Senate office while he was running. And that was just a blast. I learned a lot, and it was important to be in the thick of it as a Capitol Hill staffer trying to fight for the things that we all believe in the actual belly of the beast. So that was fantastic life experience. And then moved to Texas, with my wife. Spent some time at the Texas Public Policy Foundation, spent some time with a guy who's now in Congress, Representative Chip Roy. I was his policy advisor for a while, and the opportunity came up to meet with Konni, and I was told that this was a thing, or potentially a thing, right? We're gonna challenge the fake news industry. here in the heart of Texas, and it was too good an opportunity to pass up, namely because I thought that the background of having a very policy-centric, very politically oriented life experience would actually be useful stepping into this role. A lot of folks, will point to, oh, well, you don't have a journalism degree. Well, I know plenty of people who don't use their actual degrees in their career, and I actually think that's an added plus for what we're trying to do, which is, look, we're going to do journalism, we're going to do it right, and we're going to infuse it and undergird it with our life experiences in the public policy sphere.
Absolutely.
So let's get into the model of what the Texan is. How many, the reporters that are here, and I don't think we've kind of explained to the listeners what the model is when it comes to this. What's the platform built on? So, Drew, would you mind kind of giving us some bullet points of how that works?
Yeah. So, from a business side, or more from the
how does the organization and the journalism entity that's called the Texan, how does it survive and how is it supported?
Yeah, so we are a lot different than a lot of other media outlets, which is another strength of ours, and Konni can definitely speak to this as well. We're subscription based. We are a reader funded, reader focused entity that at the end of the day, we don't have advertisers, we don't have donors, we don't have other entities that could potentially influence what we write about. You can worry about that, right? If you're looking at other media outlets or you're reading other news, and, all of us have experienced going to websites, and when you're trying to read an article, you've got pop-up ads going all over the place, and you've got clickbait headlines, and that's not what we do. It's very clean looking. It's focused on the facts, as Konni was saying, and we've got a young, hungry, awesome team that is out there hunting down the stories that we know are important to everyday Texans. Things on, spending, immigration and the border, healthcare issues, education policy, and not only what's going on right now during the session, which is critical for all of us, but we're going to be exploring kind of the spirit of Texas, right? What does it mean to be a Texan? Why are we proud to be a Texan? And we're going to infuse everything we do with that.
So, Konni, what made you pick that model when you were looking at this, and what Drew hit on a little bit, the alternatives when it comes to advertising, or a lot of people are getting into the nonprofit media side. What was your thought process when you came up with this, and if you don't mind me asking, what was the reaction to maybe other people when you told them about this idea?
Right. So the actual business model is the brainchild of my husband, Phil. We've talked about this for a long time. Clearly, I was in the Senate before, busy doing Senate stuff, and my husband kind of, sitting on the sidelines, getting frustrated by the media, not only as a consumer of it, but how he saw it react to me as a candidate and me as a state senator too, right? So he would always sit and think about the problems that the media is having today and how in flux the industry is, and that intrigued him, and just would delve into his thoughts on why it was failing such as it is, and what kind of business model would work in an industry that is failing. And so this is all his brainchild. And once we started talking about it and he started explaining it, it's like, of course, it makes total sense. And it's really very simple. As Drew said, we're not a not-for-profit, which actually in the end, which I didn't really realize, it creates kind of this mammoth organization, really. You become, what I think, clunky, because you're just hiring, to do things that really aren't relevant to the end user, the reader. And it's the same thing with an advertising-based model. You've got to have a whole office full of people that are checking the clicks and the, all of that. It becomes where you're more focused on how many clicks you're getting than the quality of the content to the reader and what they're wanting. So again, you're responding not to the reader in those other business models, but to outside entities. And I think that's where the media currently gets it wrong. It's much like healthcare, which Drew can speak to, and we won't let him because he'll go on for hours. But it's much like that industry, right? Where the end user, the one that's receiving the care, isn't the one really getting to make the decisions.
Right.
It's the insurance people. Yeah. So anyway, so that is why he wanted to do the for-profit. No ads, no, not for profit. And also it's just, as Drew mentioned too, it's just such beautiful content quality. You're not sitting there, Xing out all these ads that keep popping up. And, so anyway, I did, of course, immediately began to, make phone calls all over the country. And really it was more outside of Texas, because when you start looking around for people to talk to, first off, they're few and far between that are right of center, in the media world. And if they are, they're only opinion. So it's very interesting. And I got a lot of, people saying it can't be done. Konni, it can't be done. We've tried this and we've tried that. Basically, you got to get a bunch of big donors to come in and fund you, and that'll keep you going. And, Phil and I would sit and talk about it, and we're like, that's not how we see it, And I will say sometimes it's interesting. We all know that sometimes those coming from the outside in see things much more clearly than those who have been in something for a very long time. To us, this seems very simple. Yep. We believe this model will work. And so far, the response has been really good. I mean, because we all know what's not working. The average person just needs somebody to step up and make, offer a product that does work. And I think so far, obviously we've only been live for, what'd you say, 36 hours. Hey. But still there was, people are validating and saying, oh my God, this is so needed, right?
It's been a great 36 hours.
It has.
It really has.
It has.
And it's interesting because, we have a lot of the same circles that we run in and on social media, on Twitter and Facebook and stuff. All I've seen since it's been posted is conservative activist after conservative activist, just normal Joe Blow, right of center Texan posting saying, I want this, right?
Absolutely.
And some of these people probably are pretty familiar with you, Konni, and all that you've done, and maybe Drew and different people here on the team. But the reality is that even the people that aren't, I've seen people I don't know, and they're just going, I need this. I want this. And to your point, from a free market perspective, you're saying, when people say I want this, it means I will pay for this. Exactly. And so if we really have faith in the people of Texas, shouldn't they put their money where their mouth is? I saw somebody post literally as I was getting here, and I don't even know this person, but they post. I was looking up the Texan on Facebook before our conversation, and this random guy posts, and he goes, I want to let y'all know that this is excellent journalism. I've already read it, and it seems to come from a perspective that doesn't attack my worldview. It's definitely worth the $7.50 a month I'm paying.
Nice.
A couple cups of coffee, I'm out, and I've got good journalism. And it's the idea that the question is how many Texans out there believe that, really?
Exactly.
And in a sense, awesome. You're taking a risk. You're betting on those Texans. I mean, you really believe more than other people that they're out there.
Absolutely. And that's, when Phil and I decided to do this, like I mentioned before, we kept thinking surely somebody's going to do this, surely. And we all know, at the national level, and we're, this is totally different and separate, but obviously, I can't remember the man's name, with Fox News, right? I mean, they stepped in and did something different, right? And became very successful. Yeah. We see this all the time with different products. And Phil kept thinking, and again, we're not a Fox News, that's not who we're trying to be, but he kept thinking somebody would do something similar to what we are. And when that didn't happen, and we decided we're putting our eggs in this basket. We have, we are funding this operation. Just my husband and I, because we believe in it. We believe that this is something that Texas needs. We believe that this is something that Texans want. And we believe that Texans are going to step up and say the things that you just quoted. We truly believe that, because what we are going to make darn sure of, and Drew and I talk about this all the time, and he is absolutely committed 100% that we're producing the facts. We're producing the facts. Yep. And I think, and it's kind of scary it's kind of scary. I think people have kind of forgotten how to read what I consider, and I don't know if it is or not, old-fashioned news. I think I've kind of seen some comments that a little disturbing, because I think everybody is so used to opinion.
Yeah.
They're so used to opinion. They only want their views validated. That's not everybody, but it's gotten to that point, right? That we're only used to validating, and we need to, let's read, everything about this issue, why this person, is for it, why this person is against it. But more than that, the cost of it, what it's going to cost the average taxpayer, average Texan. These are all critical things that people need to understand, read, so that then they can go make decisions at the voting booth, whether it's local, state, or national elections.
So Drew, I know you've spent time on the federal level, and most people that you talk to are most interested in federal issues, right? So there seems to always be just being somebody who's mostly engulfed on the state side, and even local elections for county commissioner and city council, all these other things, right? But it's very hard to find. Some people complain that there aren't enough people that are even interested in those things, that they're very interested on the national level. From your time on the federal level, what are some of the issues you see when it comes to the national media? Because I'm trying to think of The Texan, is that right? The Texan?
Yeah.
I don't know. Sorry.
It works.
Okay. It
It
wouldn't
works.
be and the Texan.
I don't know. So I'm trying to think if there is The Texan
I just edited that
on the federal
in
level.
your head.
Does that
He's
make sense?
such an editor. Sorry, Lou.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, it makes sense.
I'm trying to think if there is
No.
an entity.
I mean, and look, here's the thing. I mean, it really is interesting about, I think Konni, as she was framing it, very much it's an industry disruptor that we're engaged in, right? Which is part of the important critical ingredient for innovation. In any industry you look at, right? It's disrupting it, and in a favorable way. And I think that's one of the appealing things about what we're doing here. But there's nothing in Washington, D.C. or at the federal level, or you turn on your television. I mean, even Fox News is not an industry disruptor anymore, right? They've moved on from that. They're the industry. That's where they're at. And I think, why people care about the national news compared to state and local. It's an interesting question. I think the answer is fairly obvious. Is that they're constantly in front of us, right? Ted Cruz is constantly, in front of national media outlets, or he's the focus of it. President Trump the same way, and so people are naturally drawn to that. Meanwhile, a lot of the decisions that are being made that impact your life, either positively or negatively, happen at the state and federal level. And I would think, conservatives, as people who generally tend to view federalism favorably, right? We want to deal with more issues at the state level than in Washington. That's part of the animating principle of why you're a conservative. I would think that the focus on state level and local level issues would be very appealing and very important too for those who hold the worldview that, we want a decentralized power. We don't want one-size-fits-all approach, right, from a distant city on the East Coast, making these decisions for 330 million unique people. It makes more sense to conservatives, right, to have those decisions made at a state or a local level. And I think the Texan jumping in and having that Texas focus, and obviously we'll pay attention to what Senator Cruz is doing, in D.C., and we'll pay attention to, Representative Gomert if he's, fighting on some particular issue and it impacts Texas. We're going to cover that sort of stuff. It's important. And obviously Texans that are running for president on the Democrat side, we're going to focus on that as well. But I do think that we do provide a unique value add on a policy front, on an everyday impact front, that a lot of other entities and outlets just simply aren't doing.
One of the things, can I interrupt?
Yeah, go ahead, Konni.
So just to say what Drew was talking about, particularly for conservatives, and you're right, we believe that things should be dealt with at the state level. But what I've always found interesting, and this is a little off, Luke, sorry.
It's okay.
But as a senator, obviously I would go throughout Senate District 10 and talk to constituents and of all, whichever party, right? And I would be amazed how many times I would be in a bipartisan meeting talking to constituents about, whether they were for Obamacare or against it. When I said, listen, that's something that shouldn't be decided for us, way out in D.C.
Yeah.
It needs to be decided here in Texas, where you have much easier access with your House rep or your state senator. I mean, how how often do you get to talk to your U.S. senator or even your congressman, right? And yet they're the ones making those kinds of decisions for you that affect way too much of our lives. Anyway, so regardless, it was very, very interesting when I would talk to Democrats, which you would tend to think wouldn't think that way and just like you just, couched it, right? It's more conservatives. But really, when you actually explain that to people, everybody agrees. I would always get across the board agreement, regardless of what side of the aisle they were on, that, we need to do that here. So hopefully, maybe we can get that focus. Hopefully the Texan can be a part of making people realize that these decisions need to be, dealt with here in our state, and we can bring that focus back to where it needs to be. Because you're right. I mean, there's not only is there not something like us at the national level, there sure as heck isn't something like us at the state level. That's for sure.
Yep. So if you are a right of center Texan, what kind of actions can you take to engage with the Texan? So, I mean, what are all the things that our listeners and other people should be doing to sign up and support? What are the steps they take?
Right. Well, of course, first and foremost, we're on we're Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. So if they just kind of want to, dip their toe in the water, they can, of course, like and do all the things, follow all of our social media accounts. And then, of course, they can go directly to our website, which is TheTexan.News.
Got it.
And then they can take a look at it. They'll get up to three free articles to read.
Okay.
If they're willing to then give us their email address, they'll get a couple more articles.
Okay.
If they want unlimited access to our site, which is what we hope that they'll want, they can get it for as little as $7.50 a month.
Got it.
And that will give them access to all our podcasts, to our live interviews. We're going to eventually roll out more and more things that we're going to do, panels, all sorts of discussions. And what we're hoping is they're not going to, what I want people to understand is there's a lot of noise out there. And that's what I consider the free content, frankly. I think it's noise. Again, as I mentioned at the very beginning, it's stuff that caters more to perhaps big donors to, a left of center media organizations want to see, or what advertisers want to see. And so at the end of the day, it's not really straight factual news for the readers. And so what I say, if people are, because I hear a lot of complaints, there's just, there's so much out there. What do I do? Well, ignore all that other. It's noise, right? Come and pay $7.50 a month and get unlimited access to the Texan.News, and you'll be good to go. And you'll have more time on your hands.
That's right.
Didn't think about that.
That's good. I like that.
That was good.
Let's use that.
I like.
I think I just did.
I think this was my idea. I think y'all are welcome, because if we had not sat down and had this discussion, I don't think you would have had this revelation.
There's anything I know about Luke Macias is he likes to take credit where credit is not due.
I do.
And if there's anything else we know, it's that if you take credit for one of his ideas, it does not go well.
That's right.
It's probably
Maybe we
true.
know Luke Macias too well. Maybe you shouldn't have had us on to this podcast.
I think it's time to end this podcast, guys. I think this has been a great conversation. No, but honestly, I'm really grateful that both of you are willing to sit down and talk. I hope to have reporters from the Texan on our podcast on a regular basis if they're covering certain stories that we need to bring more Texans, bring to the light of more Texans and conservatives in general. But I'm grateful. I've said it publicly on my page and others, but my wife and I, subscribed the day this came out, and we're encouraging other people to as well, because if Texans Texans know what's wrong. That's the thing is I do believe that the Texas spirit knows what's wrong with our country, what's wrong with our state.
Yes.
We're not always given the tools to fix the problem. Yeah. And so the Texan gives them a tool. If they know what's wrong within the media, this is their avenue to fix it. And so we're going to encourage people to do that. And I'm grateful for y'all's willingness to come on and have this conversation. And I'm sure it won't be the last time that we have somebody from the Texan on our podcast.
Definitely not.
And thank you for what you've done, and thank you for getting the information out, and thank you for having us on so that we can get that information out more. I appreciate it very much.
Hey, thank you. Guys, our sponsor for today's show is Patriot Academy, patriotacademy.com. You have heard me talk about this organization, but this truly is, for many students, a life-altering event. I cannot tell you how many 16, 17, 18, 20, 25-year-olds that have gone to this leadership program and come out with an entirely new direction for their life. You can go to patriotacademy.com to find out where they do these events, but essentially they take these students and they go through a week of being a legislator. They actually debate in the Texas House of Representatives, in the Delaware House of Representatives, Idaho House of Representatives. It's an incredible experience. I have been involved with them. I believe in what they do. In fact, if you contact them and tell them that you heard about them through the Luke Macias show, I will contribute toward your fee of actually attending. If you know a student that needs to go, that needs direction for their life, they're going to have an opportunity to learn about worldview, about free market economics, about the values that hold society together, and they're going to have an opportunity to be equipped to be a part of making the change that our community, our state, our nation need. So patriotacademy.com. We're grateful for their willingness to sponsor this podcast, and we also want to encourage each and every one of you to check them out. Please do so today. And that was a wrap. Fun conversation. Right before we started talking, Raz, are you an Enneagram guy?
I am, actually.
Do you know what number you are on Enneagram?
Yeah, I'm a 3 with a 2 wing.
You're a 3. Oh, that's lame. Okay. So, I don't know. Andrew, who is helping us record this, I think he's a 4. And so anyways, right before we started recording that podcast, we realized that Drew and Konni and I are all 8s. And, for anybody who knows the Enneagram number, they know that 8 is the best. And it's the most important, and it's the one that, like, Martin Luther King and Gandhi, and, I don't know, Winston Churchill, all them, they were like all 8s. Anybody who like accomplished great and mighty things. And so we're like, if the 3 of us ever want to do one thing, we will take over the world. I mean, we realize that.
I guess we'll see, right?
It's just a random thing. I was thinking about that right as I was trying to wrap that conversation up. But we had a great conversation, and really enjoyed Drew and Konni sitting down and talking. They have a cool little office just a couple blocks away from the Capitol that I got to just visit them in and record the podcast in. Raz, any other final takeaways just as we talk about where journalism is and the need for, I guess, better journalism in our state?
Well, I just tell you, go to TheTexan.News. Subscribe, at least put your email in for the 5 free articles a month. It's $7.50 a month to subscribe annually and $9 a month if you want to pay monthly. It's a fantastic product. They're putting out more and more articles every day. So go check them out. They're great people with a great product. We love them, and you should check them out.
Raz, if people want to continue to follow you and all you're doing, where can they learn more about you?
Head on over to raz.us and hit me up on social media. You can find all of that and what I'm up to via that website.
Guys, can't thank you enough for continuing to support the show. We've had people even donate this week to continue to support our show efforts when it comes to getting this across the state. And if you go to lukemacias.com, you can sign up right there. We send out a weekly email where you get this podcast directly to your email, can click and go to our information. If you haven't liked us on Facebook, just at Luke Macias, go there, find the page, like it. You'll get the content there. You can follow me on Twitter at Luke Macias TX. That stands for Texas. And thank you so much for continuing to engage. We want to provide content for you that keeps you informed. Other conversations we've had with Tony McDonald and this property tax and sales tax stuff going on. There's a lot happening in the next 25 days or so as we wrap up the legislative session. And as we go into the summer, I hope to have some other conversations. We're in the midst of putting some conversations together. One of them I'm pretty excited about is where we're going to have some different pro-life people come and have a broader discussion. There's a discussion on an abolitionist perspective of really wanting to abolish abortion outright, and then people who are taking a more incremental approach to passing smaller incremental pro-life laws. So we're going to bring in 2 people, one on each side of that, and have a long discussion / debate on that issue. And there's some other things like that we're hoping to produce as we go throughout the rest of the year. So just trying to keep you all appraised as to what we're trying to make this about. If there are any other things that you all want to hear about out, go to LukeMacias.com, hit us up, send us a message, like us on Facebook, send us a message through the Facebook page and just say, here's somebody who I would like to have a conversation with, or here's some issues that I'd like more information on. We appreciate you supporting the show. Thank you so much. Have a great day and God bless. Thank you for listening to The Luke Macias Show. If you value this content and want our message to spread, please consider 3 of the following steps. 1, subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you're listening to us on and leave us a review. 2, visit LukeMacias.com and sign up for our email alerts. And 3, follow Raz and I on Twitter and visit my Facebook page at facebook.com/Luke Macias, Texas. Again, that's facebook.com/Luke Macias, Texas. Thank you so much, and God bless.